I'm Connor Old and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And here we are on the penultimate episode of the 2019 Oscar season for the nominations. The big stretch is coming to an end because this Sunday, before the Oscar nominations on Tuesday, I'll be releasing my final Oscar nominations predictions video. That's going to be a whole long episode. I'm going to have pretty much all of the nominations on the screen here, so if you don't want to even watch it, you can skip through it. Or if you want to hear my thoughts on Best Picture, I haven't updated that really in a while, which I'll talk about it a bit here. All the categories, even the shorts, I want to get you guys to know, not super in-depth detail, but sort of know my picks and some of my quick reasonings why, aside from some of the ones I've already picked, and explained in all these videos. But also this is going to be a combination episode, because starting off the top, we're going to be talking about the Critics' Choice reactions. But if you're new to the series, welcome. And what we do every single week is we break down a different Oscar nomination. I try to predict the Oscar nominations for a certain field, a certain category. Now we're sort of going into the later. I had to smush some of them more related ones together. And unfortunately, these are the three that each year sort of get grouped together, because even though they're not related, they're sort of the ones that come near the end for me. But also I do combination episodes, so I talk about Globes reactions, Critics' Choice reactions, and all throughout the way I try to keep you updated on the Oscar race, movies that are rising and falling. And I guess based on the Critics' Choice Awards, a couple of people that are rising. First off is Christian Bale. We're seeing maybe a repeat of last year with Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour, where Christian Bale is having this late surge for this really transformative performance in Vice. Vice is a movie that's doing very well recently, sort of having a late push surge with the success of, say, Adam McKay getting in at DGA and, getting at PGA, and Amy Adams being a potential spoiler for Best Supporting Actress. I think that, this Best Actor race is really complicated, because I thought it was going to be Bradley Cooper. I had faith in A Star Is Born, but that's really sort of been disappointing us. And then Rami Malek wins the Globes, and I think that maybe could get in. I think right now I still have Rami, because I think Rami will win the SAG. So we'll see what happens there. But then, Christian Bale wins Critics' Choice, and he's also won the Globe. So we could see this narrative for Christian Bale getting finally a Best Lead Actor award for his performance here. Right now, I think there's maybe just too much against it, but he's definitely rising in the odds. Another film I want to mention is First Reformed. That won the Best Screenplay Award, which I thought was really crucial for them in that fifth slot, where we're not so sure where it's going to get in. Is it going to be A Quiet Place? Is it going to be Eighth Grade? Is it going to be First Reformed? Right now I have First Reformed because of the Critics' Choice Award win, but the surprise of Ethan Hawke maybe not getting in everywhere for Best Actor hurts the film. But the screenplay from Paul Schrader, this is a very well-respected screenwriter, so I think that if it were to get sort of respected and shown some love, it would be the nomination for Best Original Screenplay. But watch out for something like, say, Eighth Grade. And then another, thing I want to mention for Rising is Roma. It won Best Critics' Choice Award, and I think it's really a Best Picture frontrunner now. It's one of the films that has, very little backlash against it, and some of the negative points I think are actually less for Roma, but I don't really want to get into that at this point. Just in terms of falling, I talked about briefly Bradley Cooper not winning for actor at the Globe, Star Is Born doing so terribly there, and then at Critics' Choice and not doing very well either. I know Lady Gaga and Glenn Close tied, but that's kind of signaling to me that there was a late minute surge for Glenn Close to win, and Bradley losing to Christian. When Christian already won for Best Comedy category, I thought that sort of really hurt his chances. So I think he's still going to get nominated everywhere. I think Star Is Born still going to get a good amount of nominations. But Best Picture is really falling fast, which is surprising to me. And then The Favorite, actually I don't think won any awards aside from Olivia Colman for Best Comedy Actress, which is very surprising, because I thought they really liked that movie. I thought The Favorite would be a very good sort of critics movie. So in general, The Favorite's kind of falling in my estimation, because Yorgos didn't get in for DGA. I thought it would be a critic slam dunk for someone like Olivia Colman, or some of the favorite actresses didn't win. So I think that while the movie's still going to get a lot of nominations, especially in those technical categories, I don't think it's necessarily as much as high as the Best Picture contender as some people think, and you'll see that in my predictions today. So transitioning over into Best Editing, my very first pick is going to be Roma. Now, I talked about it briefly. I think it's a Best Picture frontrunner, and just to give you a little bit of actually history around the editing category, because what has sort of historically been, which is what I've been trying to do for these past few episodes. Give you guys a little bit of context. The editing category, from my experience, is very indicative actually of Best Picture. A lot of the Best Picture winners are also nominated for Best Editing. As a matter of fact, in the 21st century, the only film that had won Best Picture and had not gotten an editing nomination, not only win an editing nomination, was Birdman. And you could sort of maybe argue that, well, that film doesn't have any editing in it, right? It sort of seemed to make one long take, so people didn't really think of that way, which could be a fair argument. But I think you look at all these winners: The Shape of Water, Moonlight, Spotlight, all these sort of great Best Picture winners, they all had an editing nomination. So when I look at Best Picture winner this year, I'm probably and most likely going to pick a movie that has an editing nomination. I think Roma, being a Best Picture frontrunner, is really going to help it out. So really, we see this category filled with Best Picture frontrunners, but we also see maybe the occasional one-off. Think of something like Baby Driver last year, which has a very noticeable editing, very sort of stylish editing in that way. So my sort of picks reflect that this year. So Roma has sort of two things going for it, and is just why it's in my number one slot. The idea that it has that Best Picture frontrunner contender, and sort of if you like the film, you like Alfonso and he actually edited the film and his sort of personal journey to create this movie. You like that, but you also like sort of the boldness of the movie. So it has great Best Picture chances, but also has unique editing because of the fact that it has a lack of editing. It's noticeable in that way because the film has long takes, not necessarily flashy, but sort of still cameras, deep focus, long takes where they just let the scene play out. There are some sort of flashy one takes, but the editing is sort of noticeable in a way because there is none. So the editing is very deliberate, and you sort of notice. And the scene transitions, I think, are actually very well done in this movie. So I think that no matter what you think of the film, the lack of edits really make you sort of immersed into the film, and if you really enjoy it, the film can sweep you off your feet, which I think the appeal of the editing really stands out here. And then my next pick is going to be A Star is Born. This is by Jake Cassidy, who is David O. Russell's guy. He's been nominated 3 times before for American Hustle and Silver Linings Playbook, and one other movie I don't think he did with David O. Russell. But I think that the sort of strength of this film is also its weakness, and in a lot of ways that's its editing. I think a common critique of the film, which is also my maybe personal problem, is that the second half really drags until the end, and that I think a lot of it needs to be cut out, and there's some questionable character motivations. It has to do with the story, but sort of how it's cut, I think it's maybe a little bit too long for a lot of people, including myself, and I thought it dragged a bit. But the benefit of the movie, in a lot of ways, is the editing. The sort of pace that it hits with we see Jackson Maine, and then they sort of meet, and then that first date and the drag bar, and sort of leading up really all the way until the shallow moment, I think is one of the best moments in film this year, one of the best moments in film really at this decade. It's an incredible job. I was blown away by it. The Shallow is one of the most memorable scenes in any movie in 2018, and I think it's because the editing, because of the flow of how it just builds and crescendo is there, and then you want to see that sort of fall, but the fall I think sort of stumbles along the way, but that beautiful crescendo is really a testament to the editing, and I think that it could get a surprise no nomination because of the lack of sort of Stars Born love right now, but I think a lot of the editing has to do with a lot of the appeal of the movie for a lot of people. I still think this is a movie people like too. So it has the Best Picture frontrunner uniqueness, and also has some really good editing, and also some maybe potentially poor editing. My next pick here is Black Klansman, Spike Lee's film, of course, and I think this, similar to Roma, has a dual threat factor. I think this is a Best Picture frontrunner, and also has this very unique, tense editing. Spike sort of delivers his message in unique ways, sort of intercutting some sequences between the Black Panthers and the Klan, and sort of talking about that. And there's actually some really great comedy in this movie, and sort of comedic timing is really well done with the editing. They sort of make it super overt and doesn't feel thrown in. It feels natural. It feels like these people are real and lived in, and also has sort of these tense moments when Adam Driver goes to the Klan and they maybe suspect him of not being a true member will say, there are some tense moments that maybe these guys will find out, maybe they'll kill him, and there's also some tense inside man-ish Spike Lee editing going on there. So I think that's really good, and I also think this is a Best Picture contender. If you think about it, guys, Spike's going to get in for director, it's going to get in for screenplay, probably win screenplay. John David Washington may get in now, Adam Driver's going to get in. It's like these things are starting to add up. If it gets in for editing, it's going to have a lot going for it. I don't think it's going to win PGAs. I think, it got in that SAG, so it could surprise there. But, watch out for BlacKkKlansman, because I think it's a movie that's definitely liked. The next pick here is Vice. I believed in this film really from day one, and it's paid off dividends, because like I said at the top, it's really rising in a lot of people's estimations, I think. And I really, even when I thought that Vice maybe wouldn't do amazing, I still thought that editing would get in because of its unique editing. The Big Short, for example, and this movie have very similar editing patterns in the way they sort of docudrama kind of esque filmmaking, the way they sort of tell the narrative, mixing real life footage. This movie covers decades, so you have really just a lot of intricate things going on. You have narrative, sort of narrations part of it. You have what I guess I would call sort of a recap or a catch-up of keeping you attuned to sort of political events and cultural, American culture at the time. The film does a lot of that. It's a sort of very unique, entertaining, very enthralling style of filmmaking that I think, no matter what, if you didn't like the movie, you still can't say you weren't engaged by it. And I think that's the strength of the editing, and it's a very sort of unique way and fun way and entertaining way of storytelling. It was very well done, and I think that it's noticeable. And Vice is also a Best Picture contender now, with Adam McKay potentially getting in for director because it got a TGA. So watch out for that. Vice editing, I think, is going to get in. And then my last pick here is First Man. Really, I'm not super confident on it because I don't think it's getting in for Best Picture. But what it has done well is done well at the award shows. I mean, Claire Foy has gotten in every Best Supporting Actress thing, even when we thought First Man was going to fall. Ryan Gosling and Damien Chazelle and these guys have fallen. But overall, I think that in the tech categories it's done well. It won Best Score. It's been getting in a lot of the Guild Awards, and I think a lot of people respect actually this guy right here, which is Tom Cross. He won the Best Editing for Whiplash. He did not win for La La Land, but he got nominated, lost to Hacksaw Ridge, which is a bit surprising. I still think people really respect him in the industry, and this movie really shows off his editing skills, the way he transitions between 16mm film to 35 to IMAX. The moon sequence is brilliant. The way he builds tension on those launches are really great, and I think the editing has that sort of tense space race feel to it, and is really sort of a crucial part of this film, and I think people still like this film, and I think this is maybe the one that gets in that's not a Best Picture contender, but is still well respected and well liked. Maybe another Best Picture movie gets in here, but I think the fact that Tom Cross is well respected and people and the editors really understand what he does. I'm a really big fan of him too, so maybe there's personal bias, so you have to keep that in mind. But I think First Man's going to get in. And then my honorable mentions are... Okay, so my honorable mentions are Black Panther and The Favorite. I just chose these because these are maybe the next Best Picture contenders in my mind, but they don't necessarily have anything unique editing, if I remember it correctly. They sort of flow along. They're entertaining movies. They could get in for Best Picture, but Black Panther's chances are at SAG, and Favorite's chances are at PGA. So right now, I think both of them, in terms of Best Picture winning, are sort of going down in my estimations. So that's why I don't think they're going to get in for Best Editing. Excuse me. For Best Foreign Film, our first pick goes to Roma. This is maybe self-explanatory because, it's going to be a Best Picture winner. I don't feel like I need to explain this one. The only question is, will they give the movie sort of this award and give something else for Best Picture? We don't know yet. Right now, I think no. My next pick here is Cold War. This is getting in at most of the precursors, lots of critics awards. Got in at BAFTA, and as a matter of fact, did very well at BAFTA. Got nominated actually for Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Screenplay, Best Film in a Non-English Language. So it did very well in an industry award like BAFTA in terms of nominations. It also won the Best Director at Cannes. So I think this is a movie that's well liked critically, did well at the box office, and is appearing on a bunch of Best of the Year lists. So I think this one is going to get in. Best Foreign Film, Shoplifters, similarly to Cold War, began a lot of the precursors, actually more precursors because it got in at the Globes. But also, the big thing with this one is that it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, which is the big award. And a lot of the Palme d'Or winners have gone on to be, foreign film nominees, not necessarily winners, but nominees. Think of something like Tony Erdmann. This is also the highest grossing domestic film in Japan, which I forgot to mention. Roma is from Mexico, Cold War is from Poland, Shoplifters is from Japan. Critical acclaim, well liked by a lot of people, did well at the box office, has the awards recognition, triple threat in that sense. Capernaum, this is from Lebanon, and the Middle East has been doing very well recently with, think of a movie something like The Salesman, so Iran, Israel, like I said, this is from Lebanon. And the story is very similar, maybe you relate to something like Lion, where it has this sort of young boy protagonist, at least that's what the vibes I'm getting from it. I have not seen it yet, but from what I've heard, it's sort of a very likable young boy performance in that way. Plus, what the Academy has been trying to do recently, why I feel actually confident in this film, is really spread where these movies are coming from. If you look at my predictions, it would be Poland, it would be Mexico, and then it would be, Lebanon, and then Japan for Shoplifters. So really, it's an international thing, very foreign. It's not just 5 movies from Europe or 5 movies from South America. There's really a lot of diversity going on here, and I think the Academy definitely each year tries to get movies from different countries all over in different parts of the world and in different continents. My last pick here is Never Look Away. This is a 3-hour movie about a German painter and his sort of intimate love story. And yes, I think it's going to get in because of that reason, pretty much. It got at the Globes, but it's also a movie that feels very pretentious in that way. It hasn't had a lot of awards recognition or critical reception, but I think this is a movie that it will get in because of the subject material, because these foreign film categories don't try to go a little less commercial, a little more artsy, and they're not opposed to 3-hour German films, which is where this is from. Something like Tony Erdmann got in before, so they kind of like the 3-hour German films. And for honorable mentions, I have here Burning, which has gotten a lot of critical acclaim, but has sort of lost on a lot of the awards reception. So that's why I don't think it's going to get in. From South Korea. The Guilty, this is from Denmark. This is more commercial. It's sort of a single location thriller where things start to come up and sort of appear after this guy has sort of made the decision. It's very much a tense movie and a thrilling movie. I just don't think that the Academy is going to go maybe a little more commercial and a little more sort of traditional Hollywood sort of blockbuster in a different language. It's still indie and it's still single location, it's still low budget, but has sort of more of a commercial aspect than say, an intimate portrait of a 3-hour, painter living in Germany. I mean, it's one of those films. Best visual effects. This goes to Avengers: Infinity War. There's actually rise in my estimation because the VES, the Visual Effects Society Awards, got nominated for 6 times. So it did very well there, which is an industry award I like to look at. Got nominated at BAFTA, which was crucial. And if you think about it, the film, what it does a great job is create sympathy for a character that is fully CGI, for a character that you sympathize with because even though he's CGI, you sympathize with him, you fear him. You can see a bit of Josh Brolin in there while he's also shooting Thanos. A lot of detail. Plus you have the Wakanda fight, you have the space sequences. There's a lot of visual effects here, and I think the Academy will really appreciate it. Plus, highest grossing film internationally, so gotta respect that too. Ready Player One also moved up in my estimation because the Visual Effects Society did very well there. And if you think about the movie, with the purists at least, the visual effects purists, you would say that this is a film that really has everything going for it, because it has the real life world, but then has the amazing Oasis where these characters, these real life characters, have these avatars that are completely different than them, but you can tell which one's which and how they sort of work together. Versus how they are in their real life companionship, and sort of the detail of a character like Artemis or H, I think is really great. And to build sort of sympathy for these characters once again that are fully CGI, I think the Academy and the visual effects sort of purists and society really will appreciate these kind of films and nominate it. Visual effects here for Black Panther I have. This was gone down in my estimations because of the Visual Effects Society actually not nominating it at all, which actually doesn't surprise me too much because they're very much purists, and the film, at least the third act to me, felt rushed, almost looked like PS2 graphics. But I still think the beginning, sort of going into Wakanda, I think the love of the film sort of pushed it over the edge. Because it actually won a Critics' Choice at, it won for visual effects at Critics' Choice and got nominated at BAFTA. So, you know, that's good. And then best visual effects here. Next one I have First Man. You know, each year there's always one film. A couple years ago it was Deepwater Horizon. The year before that it was The Revenant. Even something like Ex Machina, which won sort of these realistic, real life sort of movies with very little visual effects or not noticeable visual effects get it in. And I think this year's going to be First Man is going to be that one just because of the love technically got in at Visual Effects Society. There's, you know, whatever you think of Damien Chazelle's movies, I think they're always well respected in the technical categories. So I think for a space race movie like this one should get in. And then I have my last thought going to Solo, a Star Wars story. Just a little bit of fact for you. Every single Star Wars movie has been nominated for visual effects except for Revenge of the Sith. As a matter of fact, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi actually got special Oscars for the visual effects in each year they were released because they were so sort of instrumental in creating visual effects. So Star Wars has a rich history with the visual effects community, and I think the knock against Solo is that no one really remembers it, and it's sort of lukewarm reception. It hasn't come out in December, but all the previous Star Wars movies except for Revenge of the Sith have gone in, so... Plus it's got a character of L337, which is completely CGI, so I think people will still respect that, and Chewbacca and these sort of classic characters. No, Chewbacca's not visual effects, but you know, some of the classic characters that, you know, that are visual effects. And then here we have Welcome to Marwen, which is Robert Zemeckis' film for the first honorable mention. As I was doing my research, I thought I was going to go with this one, but as I was doing my research, because it has this sort of factor of the late release, but a Polar Express, which is another motion capture film by Robert Zemeckis, and Beowulf did not get in. Plus, even a movie like his, like The Walk, which has this great sort of tense sequence, it's all visual effects, did not get in. So his sort of motion capture experience hasn't been very good. And then Mary Poppins Returns, which I thought for sure would get in for visual effects because of the blend of animation. I think people just see that as animation and not visual effects, mostly because it didn't get in at BAFTA, which was very surprising, and it didn't get in at any nominations at Visual Effects Society. So really, that writes it up for me completely. Another one I didn't have here is Christopher Robin, which could get in for that sort of adorable Winnie the Pooh character and sort of the charm of that, and that could beat out a movie like First Man as a sort of realistic type movie, but we don't know.